Hey, this TK Irish, and man, it's college football weekend. And if you like college football, this is the place to be with the Camp Kennerk College Football Conference. And even if you don't like football, you still need to be here because we got a lot to talk about. Doug the neighbor's got some great information, and hey, it's Thanksgiving weekend, so a lot of things are going on with family, friends. Course, there's a lot of alcohol, food, and conversations. And so, in our family, there's always a big gathering, 10, 15, 20 people sitting around. And every time you sit and you're telling stories. And so we sort of have a custom in our family that if someone starts telling a story, and they've already heard it, they go like this. I've heard it once, I've heard it twice, I've heard it three times, and then you just can't tell the story, right? Well, I started to tell a story that I was very proud of, and then all of a sudden I saw them go 5, 10, 15, 20. They've heard it 20 times. I said, there's no way you've had this 20 times. I just made it up. And they just laugh. So, it's a tough crowd around there, Douglas. And but we made it. It was fun. And everybody will go back home thinking of a new story for next time when we get together for Christmas. But I tell you what, the college football is really all about. It is about tradition, it's family. And this weekend, it was really probably what would call rivalry weekend. That's where the conferences enemies play each other, sometimes in fun, sometimes they take it too serious. Like the example of Ohio State and Michigan. We had Indiana play Purdue. We had Texas A&M play Texas. And I know Douglas is going to talk about this in depth, but just want to give you an idea. Of course, we have Alabama and Auburn. And that's what really makes it fun. But the situation is it's not as big a deal now since they're not in the same conference. Everybody split up, and but I give the schools and the conferences credit for trying to keep this together because they understand how important it is of the fans and the alumni and the boosters. So we also have coming up next week the conference championships. So these conferences have a playoff system where you win and go on, or losers go home. So this is really an exciting time. Rivalry weekend. Then we got the college championship football playoff system, which is sort of in a flux now because we've got the some big upsets that came on this week. And Douglas, I hope you agree with me that this is the time of the year for football.
TK, so good to see you. It's a beautiful, beautiful Thanksgiving weekend. Family, food, friends, and football. And you are so correct. It's just lovely. It's great. And we have a lot to talk about. Do you have your coffee there?
Right here, man. Liquid
Oh my
confidence.
God. Mm-mm-mm. My get up and go, Joe. And it is football time. And this is just terrific to see you. And I have done my homework, as you know. So, and what is this sign? Does that mean you've seen it, heard it 10, 15 times?
Yeah. See, Douglas, the secret is this.
This is going to be a new tradition in America. I can see this coming. Oh my God.
Yeah. Uncle Louie, how many times we don't want to hear that story again.
That is too good. That's a good Camp Kennerk Irish, TK Irish tradition. I love it. But let's get into some football, okay? I've got my football right here, my Longhorn football. Where's the label? Right there, upside down. There you go. There you go. So I'm ready, and it's a big game this weekend. And so let's just get into it. The Camp Kennerk Conference was formed because of our love of the old Southwest Conference, and then through money, greed, whatever, it just split up. But in the old days of the Southwest Conference here in Texas, beautiful time for friends to get together, for barbecue, for family, For rivalries, visit. You could drive to Lubbock, you could go to TCU, Fort Worth, you come down to Baylor, go to Austin, go to College Station, visit friends, travel around the state, and have a great, great time. But that's all gone because of greed, money, TV, and it's ugly. But for us, it's the old Southwest Conference, and we have reconstituted into the Camp Kennerk College Football Conference. So let's get started. Starting out there in the West, we've got Texas Tech and Lubbock. They're now in the Big 12, and they played West Virginia, and they beat them 49-0. 49-0. So there you go. But Texas Tech's a great team, and they end up the season with 11-1 at 11-1. So it's pretty good. Next, we've got TCU, Texas Christian University in Fort Worth. They're in the Big 12, and ended up the season at 8-4, but they beat Cincinnati 45-23. And then we've got SMU, Southern Methodist University in Dallas, where I went to class. I took classes there, and they're in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and they ended up the season at 8-4, and they got slaughtered by California Golden Bears 38-35. I'm going to have to watch some of that game because pretty high scoring game and kind of interesting how they ended up. And then in Waco, Texas, the home of Dr. Pepper, we've got the Baylor Bears, who ended up the season at 5-7, and they're in the Big 12, and they lost to the Houston Cougars. Now, let's get to the big game. All right, here in Austin, Texas.
I'm all ears, buddy. I want to hear all the exciting news.
Okay. Now, of course, this is the first time that the Texas A&M have played in Austin since 2010, because in 2011-12 they joined the SEC, so they didn't play. Last year, Texas went to College Station to play there, but this year they came here to DKR, Darrell Royal Stadium, and it's rivalry because the Aggies are 11-0 going into 11. What were the Aggies? 11
They're
and go.
perfect. They're a perfect 11-1.
Yeah, they were a perfect. They were 11-0 going
Yeah.
into the game, and the Texas is 8-3. So the real rivalry, but Arch Manning and the Longhorns turned it around and beat them 27-17.
Yes. Yeah, I watched that game, and you know, there was some action going on, but obviously someone didn't do their homework all the way to, I was expecting to have, like a last minute field goal to win the game
Yes,
or,
yes, yeah.
some breakaway kickoff that changes the direction of the game. But it was just sort of Texas came to play.
They
And
came to play. And for our friends and neighbors around the galaxy, to take a look at any of the videos of the packed stadium, 100,000 plus stadium, and the drone show, the lights, the cheerleaders, this is America and this is Texas. It was absolutely beautiful. Texas culture of the Aggies, the Longhorns, Bevo being there, the Aggie 12th man being there, the drone show, which was fantastic, just unbelievable. I'd never seen anything like that. It was just a great, great day. And then Texas beat the Aggies beat them 27-17. Now, the Aggies, of course, in the SEC, they lost to the Longhorns 27-7. So the Aggies are now 11-1. And then, of course, moving over to Houston, where Rice was in the original Southwest Conference, but they're the Cream Puffs, and they're not supposed to be playing football. They're in the brain. What do you call it? The Brain League?
yeah, yeah, they're the code writers. They're the AI guys.
They're
So
the Princeton.
actually, we need to pony up to those guys since AI is so prominent. Maybe they could give us some insight on how to pick our teams a little bit better.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Hey, that was even an original idea, Douglas. I'm so proud of myself.
You're always full of good ideas. Full of it, I'll say. A good idea. Some good ideas. Now, next we've got Oklahoma State up there in Stillwater. They're in the Big 12, but I've never cared about them, you know. But Oklahoma State had a little trouble this year. They're 1-11, and they
Yeah.
fired Mike Gundy. And Mike Gundy is the guy who turned the entire program around so that money flowed to the from the alumni for the school. They were considered something, but something went wrong. Everything got sideways this year because it ended up being 1-11, and they fired Mike Gundy.
Well, Douglas, this is the time of year that the resume writers for college football coaches are very busy. I don't, how do you do this? How do you do a 1-10 season and which is a failure, right? And then
Yes.
you go and interview and they say, "Oh, that was a fluke." I'll get you the conference championship. Watch, I can do it. And everyone goes, "Oh, okay. How much money do you want?" So that's
Well,
again,
you go fishing and golfing for 2 years, and then everybody forgets, and then there's always some school who believes in you, maybe a school a step down division or something. Well, he did this, but he had a bad year, So that's how it works.
yeah.
And then
Well,
of course
not
you're getting bought out on your buyout.
yes. And of course, now the great excuse is, well, it was the transfer portal. I didn't get enough NIL money. It really gives them an excuse. Before it used to be, well, we had a couple key players get injured or they got thrown in
Yeah.
jail but now they've got an expanded list of excuses. And I got to tell you, sometimes these coaches get pretty creative in how they design this stuff.
The excuses. But look at it this way. NIL money, you paid the wrong guy.
Yeah. Well, they got to vet the students better.
You're paying an 18-year-old kid.
I've always thought that anybody who wants to put their career on the line with the 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids being the reason for your job, that's not really a good decision in my opinion.
And you got two boys, so you've been through that. And they're good kids, but you've been through that.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to the Arkansas, which is up there in Fayetteville. They're in the SEC, and they are 2-10, and they had a bad season because usually Arkansas is a pretty good team. They lost to the Missouri Tigers 31-17, and then next in there in Norman, Oklahoma, we've got the SEC. We've got Oklahoma. They ended up being 10-2, and they beat LSU Tigers 17-13. So that is basically the Camp Kennerk College Football Conference from the old Southwest Conference, which we are following. Excuse me, which we've been following. Now we've got our teams from our heart. First off, we've got Notre Dame, your team that is from your heart.
Yes.
Okay. Now they're an independent, and they ended up being 10-2. In their last game of the season, they beat Stanford 49-20. Stanford being in the Brain League. So, come on, Stanford, write
Yeah.
code, you
Yeah.
know, just do something. Do AI on recruiting or something like that. Or help me to figure out how to unplug the toilet. Well, I just can't. The carburetor's all screwed up this week too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on, guys. Do what you do best, not what you think you do best.
Then tell me why I studied parallelograms in high school. I've never seen parallelogram season.
Yeah.
Tell me what, please, please. Okay, following my team, the University of Texas El Paso, UTEP, out there, they're in the Conference USA this year. Next year, I don't know. 2 years from now, I don't know. They're moving again. They ended up the season at being 2-10, and they got shellacked by the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens, 61-31.
And they got, but as we talked about before, they flew all the way to Delaware from El Paso, and think of how many frequent flyer miles they got out of that deal. Forget about the game. Forget about the payoff. Let's just
So,
talk about what it's about. It's the miles.
yes, and but you see, the thing is about this week, week 13, rivalry week. The University of Texas El Paso's big rivalry is New Mexico State in Las Cruces, which is just up the street, yeah, 20, 30 miles away from El Paso. So that they played that last week. Well, why did they do that? I don't know. I don't get it. So a lot of future problems for UTEP. If they listen to me, they should move into the future, cancel football, and just take up soccer. They would dominate in soccer, and they've got a beautiful stadium there, the Sun Bowl. There you go. All right. So now we're also following Bill Belichick of the formerly of the New England Patriots, a legendary coach. He's now coaching in North Carolina, and they're in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and they ended up being 4-8. They had an opportunity to break to have a winning season, but they went south on the last couple of games, and they lost in their rivalry game against North Carolina State 42-19. So
Ooh.
yeah, ooh, yeah. So Bill's got some work to do, but I'm not giving up on him. He's just one of those guys that can get it done, and he can bring in NFL coaches, and he can make it work. So we're going to
Well,
follow.
Douglas, it goes back to he's been a very successful coach in the NFL, but those guys were over 21. So now now he's going back to 18, 19-year olds, and I'm sure he's scratching his head going, huh, what do I do now?
Absolutely true. Now, we're following the Oregon Ducks because Kevin, the magnificent computer dude, that's his team that he follows. And the Oregon Ducks they're in the Big Ten. They ended up being 11-1. And they beat their rivalry, Washington Huskies, 26-14. Now, let's get to the Hoosiers in the room. Let's get
Yes, yes.
there. Indiana in the Big Ten, 12-0. Undefeated season, 12-0.
Well, looking and thinking about this, this is sort of they sort of, the numbers, they always have the number 12 and they always have the number 0. But it was the other way around. So either, it's dyslexic or somebody, you just, flip the numbers. And of course, everybody loves it, but it's not the first time they've had a 12 and a 0 on their record.
Well, now this is Signetti, the coach's second year, right?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, he's second year. Well, anyway, their rivalry game, they beat Purdue 56-3.
Yes.
So they came to town to play.
Next week, they play Ohio State, the number 1, the number 2 teams. Now that's going to be a Donnybrook. There's going to be some hooligans running around there, and they're
Right.
just going to see what the world happens.
That's the Big Ten championship.
Yes.
That is the Big Ten championship, and that is next week. Now, here and that great timing. Let me just get a little sip of coffee here. There you go. Now that brings up the whole aspect of the DTN college playoffs. Okay. And playground justice is applied. Okay. The top 25 teams by AP, UPI, there's 25 teams of the Southwest Conference team, the Camp Kennerk Southwest Conference. A&M, you count them. Okay, A&M,
Okay. 1,
Texas Tech,
2,
Oklahoma,
3,
Texas,
4,
SMU
5.
in the top 25 teams.
That's talent there, guys. That's
That is talent. That is the old Southwest Conference, Camp Kennerk Conference, that are in the top 25. Now, we also follow Indiana, so they're in. We also follow Oregon, they're in. We also follow Notre Dame, they're in. And those teams from our heart are in the top 25. So of the AP Camp Conference. Okay, but the DTN Camp Kennerk College Football Playoffs, playground justice. Okay, there are two teams that are 12 and 0. 12 and 0. They're 12 and 0. There are six teams that are 11 and 0. And then there are eight teams that are 10 and 2. So when it comes around for a playoff system, okay, now they get, what is it, 12 teams for the playoff system? 12, 12,
Yeah,
12,
yeah, yeah.
12 teams for the playoff system. Okay, well, here's some facts to cloud up the whole situation. There are 69 bowl games starting tomorrow. Okay, starting through January 29th. There are 46 D1 teams in there. There are three D2 teams, 14 D3 teams, and six all-star games. Okay. And then the five of the FBS games and one of the championship. The championship is on January 19th. Okay. So there's a lot of bowl games and they're all going to vie for TV, but if you're in that area, your team, yeah, maybe you'll watch. But I remember last year some of these watching some of these, there was nobody in the stands.
No, no. I've gone to several. They have like three or four bowl games here in Dallas Fort Worth area,
Sure.
and, and I've gone to the games, and there aren't. But it's the TV rights. We talked about this before. They're just playing for the TV rights. There's unless you got a good rivalry of two good teams that just happen to make the bowl games, you're going to get some audience there in the stands. But
Right.
the real challenge is, and I don't blame the players for this, is they don't want to play in these bowl games because they get hurt and they could lose their career.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's the whole argument in the NFL concerning the number of preseason games. That's down to three now,
Hmm.
and the stars don't play. So, it's just to find out who's going to make the team. But playground justice. Like I said, there were eight teams that are 10 and 2, six that are 11 and 1, and two that are 12 and 0. So, playground justice, we're not really interested in a team that's 8 and 4 that's playing another team that's 7 and 5. We had enough football that's been going on since August. How are you, now TV's going to do everything about it's going to be an exciting game, blah 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 blah. No, it's two teams that are 8 and 4 and 7 and 3. Okay, who cares? Playground justice. Now, relating to soccer, in soccer and in other sports, what they do is they vie for third and fourth place, so that you have number one plays, the two number ones play. Whoever wins is number one, loser is number two. Then you vie for the number two. So next week, we'll talk about the DTN playoff conferences, the championship. But right now, the big game is Ohio State and Indiana. Ohio State and Indiana. And that is the big game, and it's coming up. Now, on that note, which one do you think is number one by the DTN numbers? Using average yards per game plus points to get a number, and average yards per game plus points to get another number for Indiana. Which team do you think is number one?
Well, that's a good question, Douglas, and I've sort of eyeballed this a little bit here and there. And I really got to say, I think Indiana, uh, they've scored a lot more points. If you're talking about points scored and yards, and they got a great quarterback, I'd have to say Indiana.
You're absolutely true, TK. The combination of yards per game plus points equals 10-15, a number 1015. Ohio State 438 average yards per game and points 444 equals 882. So that's almost 100 and 120, 140 points difference. So
Yes.
Indiana is truly number one.
Well, and we'll see them prove it next Saturday.
Absolutely true. TK, thank you very much. It's a beautiful, beautiful weekend. Thanksgiving. Very thankful for doing this with you. Go Cowboys.
Aaron Goodbraw.